Members, please remember to sign in. Good morning. We have a good audience this morning. Welcome. Welcome to the House Transportation Committee for January 20th, 2026. And it's good to have you with us today. Members, don't forget to sign in. I hope you remember your code. I forgot mine, but there is help available from the clerk's office. So if everybody will sign in, please. And Madam Clerk, when they're all signed in, if you would take the roll. Or Mr. Clerk, either one. We have two. Just bear with us. Are we all signed in? Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, you have 20 members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk, I should have said that. Thank you, members, for being here today. Before we go any further, I'd like to recognize Chairman Hawk. Chairman Hawk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Howell, and members of our committee. We have had a couple of great losses to the legislative process and to our Department of Transportation over the last few weeks. I'd like to take a moment to recognize Representative Jeff Burkhardt, who passed away last year. Went to sleep and never woke up. And certainly we miss Representative Burkhardt and his district and his family. We send our deepest condolences. Also, it's hard for us here in East Tennessee. Our newly appointed Region 1 Director, Dexter Justice, passed away just over the last few days. And Dexter, his first job with TDOT, with the Department of Transportation, was in the Greene County office. He's got many family members in my district in Greenville and Greene County, and we will truly miss Dexter, and we appreciate his service to the state. But Chairman, with your indulgence, if we could take a moment of silence in memory of Representative Jeff Burkhardt and former Director Dexter Justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Any personal orders? Speaker Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two guests today from G Squared in Lincoln County. You have Michael Wisenut and Frank Taylor. They are doing aerial mapping with TDOT. So welcome today, guys.
Thank you. Welcome. Any other personal orders from the members? Seeing none, I have a little housekeeping. Members, you may see a new face on the dais up here. We have a new intern, Sophia Myers. Where's Sophia? Stand up, Sophia. Let us look at you. Sophia is available to help both the full chair and the sub chair, and also help the members. If you need assistance, just let us know. And Sophia is here to help. She's a junior at ETSU, majoring in political science. Did I get that right? And focusing specifically on family. I think that's a great ambition. Also, we have two new clerks. Darius Shaw, raise your hand, Darius. There's Darius. And then we have Olivia Davis. Raise your hand, Olivia. Welcome. And then, of course, our usual suspects, my assistant, Sarah Hutton, to my far right, research analyst, Jeremy Maxwell, to my right, and our Attorney Joel Hayes, the man who does it all. So we're glad to have you with us today, and we're also glad to have TDOT with us today. I've looked forward to this hearing for quite some time, and I'm a big fan of TDOT. I think they do a lot with a little. They're really good at managing what funds we give them, and I'm sometimes amazed at what they're able to accomplish. So we're here today to get a report from Commissioner Reed and some of his staff I see with him. So without further ado, we'll ask the commissioner to come forward and take his place at the table. And while they're doing that, we have to dispose of a couple of bills. It'll take just a second, Commissioner. House Bill 864 has been calendared 3 times. It shall be set for a hearing on the special calendar to be published with the committee's final calendar. And also House Bill 536 by Love has been taken off notice. That completes the calendar business. And Commissioner, we are excited to have you and your staff with us and to hear what you have to share with us. So you're recognized, sir. We're working on the microphones up here. There you go. If it turns red, you're on.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate it. Before I get into the presentation, I appreciate Chairman Hawk's discussion of Representative Burkhart, but also someone that he mentioned that we lost last Thursday. Dexter Justice was with the department for 25 years, had most recently been named Region 1 Director, has dedicated his entire career to the state of Tennessee. He wasn't just a teammate of ours here at TDOT. He was a personal friend to many of us, had a lot to do with many of the positive changes we've made at TDOT over the course of the last 4 years. So while we're here with heavy hearts with regard to that, I would ask just to, if you would, keep his wife Melanie and his 2 daughters and the rest of their family in your prayers. And just like Dexter would tell us or tell me almost after every phone call, we'll get it done. So we're going to press forward and get it done here today. So appreciate the opportunity, Chairman Howell, to be here. Just a little bit about me as commissioner. I've met many of you over the course of my tenure as chief engineer prior to getting into this role. But I did want to give you a little bit of background of where I come from and what I'm looking forward to doing as your commissioner of TDOT. I spent the first 15 to 16 years of my career in the private sector as an engineering consultant. I am a licensed engineer. My background is in highway design and highway construction. When I was a consultant, TDOT was my largest client. I worked for several DOTs across the Southeast, but TDOT Tennessee is my home and TDOT was my largest client. Back in 2014, I got the opportunity to join the department as director of construction. The administration at that time was looking at adding some private sector flavor to the department to blend with our career employees to really take the department forward. And I took that opportunity. I'd always had the desire for public service. My plan was to come in and be here 5 years, learn how government worked, how my biggest client worked, and go back and be better at my job. I sit here before you 11 years later, humbled by the opportunity to be leading this great organization as commissioner. So as I talk through what our plans are going forward, one of the things you'll see is I've seen this business from both sides of the fence. And it's really important that we understand that we in the transportation world are part of a larger market, not only in this state, but in our region and in the country as a whole. And times they are a-changing. That's for sure when it comes to transportation. So one of the things I wanted to do is talk about what my vision is for the department. And it's really very simple. I want to pursue excellence in 3 key areas: program delivery, staff development, and system modernization. So what does that really mean? When it comes to program delivery, I'm not talking about just getting projects to contract. I'm talking about pursuing excellence in every single thing that we do, whether it's approving an invoice, buying right away, picking up trash, paving our roads, every single thing that we do. That's the bar that we're going to set for ourselves and our staff. Staff development, strategically aligning our people and our processes. We're seeing a very different world as far as the the needs that our system has to accommodate in transportation with such wonderful growth that we're experiencing here in Tennessee and in the Southeast in a very competitive economic environment. That means we have to look at transportation solutions differently. Not to mention the fact that the cost of goods and services continue to rise, and we have to figure out a way to meet that challenge. When it comes to system modernization, modernization can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. From our standpoint, it's the whole ball of wax. It's everything from getting ready to be ready for autonomous vehicles and smart freight corridors, to working with our local stakeholders on initiatives that they deem important, but it's also modernizing and taking care of what we have. We have a lot of bridges and pavements across the state of Tennessee that must remain in good shape because they will never be cheaper to address than they are today. So system modernization, a huge thing for us. Another part of that is advancing the discussion about advances in our industry, whether that's technology, but also how we're funded. As you will hear from us later today, and the chairman already mentioned, we continue to have challenges with just how far the dollars go. So we're constantly looking at ways that how can we shake every couch cushion and squeeze every little bit out of every lemon that we can to make sure that we use those funds to the best of our ability. So why does this vision matter? Well, it's really very simple. We are embarking on delivering the most ambitious program in the history of this state. Thanks to this body and the governor of the state of Tennessee, we have made historic investments in transportation over the course of the last several years. Y'all have given us tools to advance projects quicker and address innovative techniques and how we deliver those. And we are also positioning this state as a leader in transportation nationally. Gone are the days when we can just rock along and keep Tennessee just where it needs to be, keep our system in good shape, and not be part of a regional or national landscape. I can tell you that people from all over the country are looking at what Tennessee is doing with regard to transportation, largely because of the investment y'all have made and the care that you and attention you give this matter. Lastly, and most importantly, why this vision matters really to me is we have a job to fulfill commitments to Tennesseans. They trust us with a lot of dollars. We have one of the largest agency budgets. We interact with our citizens and people that travel through this state every day. It's very important to us that we fulfill our commitment to Tennesseans, get started what we finish, and that they can trust that we're using those dollars in the best way possible. So what I'd like to do real quick, if we could, I'd like to give you a little bit of an idea of what we did this past year when it comes to delivering on this vision. Thank you. So you can see there a little bit about what we accomplished just this past year. And while there are additional things, I do want to highlight the fact that the general fund transfer that was given to us last year, as well as the recurring funds, are already at work. Just like the TMA dollars, we want to be very open and transparent about how we have put those dollars to work as quickly as possible. So let me give you a couple examples. I won't read all of these, but there are a couple that I'd like to point out. The first one is our spot safety program. In last year's recurring dollars, there was 13 million recurring put in for spot safety. Prior to that, we had $8 million a year that was spread throughout the state for spot safety. And what those projects typically are signal upgrades, intersection improvements. It could be a turn lane added here or there, usually somewhere in the range of $500,000 to $2 million projects. So $8 million spread across the state. With the dollars y'all gave us last year, we now have an additional 13 million recurring going into that pot. And you may think, well, in a $3 billion budget, how big a deal is that? Well, it's extremely significant, especially to rural communities. When we go in and are able to address turn lanes at an intersection or a school zone or things like that, one of the things we hear most often from folks is, well, if y'all would just put in a 4-lane, it would solve all of our problems. Well, obviously, we can't always do that. But what you see with this spot safety program, you can go in and make these low-cost improvements and a lot of times get 80 to 90% of the operational improvement. So these are small projects with huge benefits all across the state. The other thing is it's fairly flexible money for us to be able to go in there and address things that are safety problems. There are requirements at the federal level to spend safety dollars. And a lot of these projects don't always qualify. So those projects go into a backlog. These dollars allow us to move that backlog forward of projects that may or may not have met the threshold for the federal dollars, and we're still able to get those projects delivered. So they're small in size, they're huge in impact. So I wanted to mention those today. And what we've been able to do is add 28 additional just through the dollars that came in this past year. We had a backlog of approximately 30 projects in that program. We've been able to move all of those up in development, and we're backfilling the coffers behind that, ready to go to be able to deliver more projects. So again, wanted you to see some of the benefits of those dollars that were appropriated to us last year. Another one is our pavement program. Thanks to the $16 million recurring that we got there last year, plus the one-time money, plus some TMA dollars, we were able to advance 50 additional resurfacing projects for this coming year. Many of you know, and I know there's a little bit of a weather story that's out there right now. Obviously, we're watching that very closely, but a few years ago, we were hit with some pretty severe winter storms that took its toll on our pavements. We've been able to get most of those back in good shape, but you can see here with letting an additional 50 projects this coming summer, we're going to be able to get ahead of that curve somewhat. The other thing that's unique is through innovations in our project development process on the heavy construction side, efficiencies gained, we were able to add another 16 projects on top of that by dollars that we've saved on our heavy construction program. So I will tell you, in many of your districts, you are probably going to get calls this summer. There's going to be a lot of paving going on in the state of Tennessee. We need it. It needs to be put on the ground. But I again, wanted you to see how the dollars that you're appropriating are being put on the ground in real time. Lastly, that I'll mention here, and again, there's multiple things up here that we can discuss further as y'all see fit. But the other thing I wanted to mention was Rural Service Patrol. We took $16.7 million of the recurring dollars that came in last year. Many of you are familiar with our yellow trucks, our help trucks in the urban areas, roadside assistance, incident management. We don't have those on our rural interstates and major state routes throughout Tennessee right now. Those are outside those limits. If we have an incident on those areas today, they get addressed by our maintenance and construction staff, which, as you can imagine, takes them away from replacing a culvert or patching potholes or trimming trees or the things that they're doing all the time. So this is a force multiplier to have that kind of service, that Rural Service Patrol help type service on our rural interstates and major state routes throughout the state. It's big because not only from a staffing standpoint, typically the incidents that are on rural interstates are much less forgiving. Speeds are higher. It's further distances to medical care. Again, this is something that directly impacts Tennesseans that drive and use our facilities on a daily basis. So we're really excited. You're going to see that roll out this spring. The first region will be Region 2, where you will start to see those. So again, really excited about advancing the Rural Service Patrol. That's some of how we've spent the dollars. Also want to let you know on some of the things that are going on internally with TDOT over the last year. We've had a lot of successes, but not all of them are external or for everybody to see. I'd like to ask my Deputy Commissioner over Program Delivery, Ms. Lori Lang, to talk about a few internal things that we've done over the course of the last year.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm Lori Lang. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Program Development and Delivery. I started my career at TDOT as the Region 3 Pre-Construction Director and worked my way to the headquarters as the Director of Construction. I worked on the private side for a number of years where I met Commissioner and have local government experience before being recruited back to TDOT to assist with some of these incredible progress the department has made. I wanted to start by recognizing our EPIC initiative that's empowering people, influencing culture, our internal restructuring effort, which has produced amazing results in a very short amount of time. With nearly all of our employees now in EPIC positions, our retention rate has increased to 92%, and our turnover has reduced from 17.8% in 2022 to 8% this year. We believe that these numbers prove that we are creating a culture that allows us to provide meaningful and challenging work for our employees. One very important product of our EPIC program is the creation of proficiency-based training programs that align technical training with the classification system. Our transportation workers, for instance, having gone through the first level of these training programs, were first on the ground to respond to the Hurricane Helene devastation. Not only that, refining of those skills has made our equipment operators some of the best in the nation. We are extremely proud of our TDOT team that won the Southeast Rodeo Championship for the 11th time and second year in a row this past fall. This competition amongst equipment operators in the southeastern states is very competitive, and the environment allows our teams to develop relationships with their peers and bring the knowledge from other operators back home to Tennessee. Looking back to Hurricane Helene, TDOT employees from all across the state converged on Upper East Tennessee to help when this disaster struck. But so did many others from our sister states, and the relationships our team built during the rodeo proved vital to getting the job done quickly and efficiently. We are proud to announce that since Helene, we have reconnected 48 of 49 closures, with the final closure anticipated to open in the next few months. None of this would have been possible without your support. The Transportation Modernization Act provided us the cash on hand to get contracts out the door fast, and the additional alternative delivery methods within the legislation allowed us to think outside the box like we have never before. Serving our communities. Speaking of the TMA, I will turn it over to Brian Ledford, our Major Projects Bureau Chief, to talk through 2 projects made possible by the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. As Lori said, I'm Brian Ledford, Major Projects Bureau Chief. I, like my colleagues here, spent a large part of my career in the private sector, 35 years as a contractor, a road builder, and now the last 3 years with TDOT, which has been probably more rewarding than the first 35 years. But Major Projects Bureau is a new bureau at TDOT because prior to the TMA, we weren't in the major projects business. FHWA defines a major project as a project over $500 million. And so our largest project to date has been $186 million. And now through the tools that were unlocked by the Transportation Modernization Act. We have the Kings Crossing Bridge in the works, which will be around $1 billion. We have choice lanes to bring congestion relief to Nashville, which will be in the multiple billions of dollars. And so the TMA was really a turning point in that it unlocked these new tools. It wasn't just, here's $3.3 billion, go spend it. It was leverage these dollars. Leverage these dollars to do much bigger things. And without that leverage, we could not have gone after the major grant to do Kings Crossing. We could not have leveraged through a P3 the delivery of choice lanes. So I'll hand it back to the commissioner to speak more to that.
So I think it's important to kind of set the stage. To me, it's important to understand where you've been to figure out where it is that you want to go. So just want to talk a little bit about some of the milestones that we've been able to achieve, thanks in large part to this body, the foresight of the Tennessee General Assembly, as well as the past two governors in making transportation a priority. If you look back to 2017 and the Improve Act, it was the first time the gas tax in Tennessee had been changed in some time. There were a lot of projects attached to that list, and it was a substantial increase in the gas tax. So we started down that path of addressing what we needed to with regard to transportation. We all know that those dollars are not have not produced the amount of projects that we would like, but I think it's important that you stay on this path towards doing something about a situation that you know needs to be addressed. And then a big game changer in 2023, as has been mentioned here, the Transportation Modernization Act. While there were $3.3 billion attached to it, as Brian just said, it wasn't about just pouring money in and then going and doing projects. It was about having more tools to be able to deliver those projects more efficiently, and most importantly, being able to leverage those dollars to do the things that you need to do. Obviously, Kings Crossing, being able to have dollars on hand to match that federal grant was huge. Having dollars on hand to be able to use as seed money for our first public-private partnership on I-24, huge. And then something none of us anticipated, as Lori mentioned, the ability to have cash on hand when disaster strikes in the way of Hurricane Helene. It put us in a position where we were not totally dependent on the federal government to be able to respond to that the way that we as Tennesseans like to respond. So again, a huge, huge game changer in that. And then again, last year, another historic milestone. For the first time ever, we received recurring general fund dollars to fund transportation in Tennessee. I outlined a few of the things that we're using those dollars for earlier in my comments. Once again, I think it's very important that as we go down this path, or down this road, if you will, of how we're going to address transportation in Tennessee, that we continue this momentum of looking at ways to develop solutions for what we all know is a need that is far outpacing the funding that is there to address it. So each one of these things has expanded our ability to be able to address how we deal with those challenges. So I'd like to shift just a second and talk about things a little bit from a national point of view. As I mentioned in my earlier comments, Tennessee is becoming a big player in what is going on nationally with transportation. I spent a week in DC last week at TRB, which is the Transportation Research Board conference. Thousands of people from all over the world, including heads of DOTs, US DOT officials, researchers, transportation practitioners. And there was a very common theme throughout that conference and all of our discussions about there not being enough revenue to build. Tennessee is not unique in that situation. What is unique is the emphasis we have placed on it in Tennessee through this body, through our governor, and I hope that you see through your Department of Transportation that we're going to find ways to be able to stay ahead of the curve in dealing with these challenges. So one of the things that's changing out there is what Brian mentioned, mega projects. These are becoming more and more the norm for all of the states across the country. The days of $186 million projects here and there are just not meeting the need. The need is great. And also what we're seeing is states are just like us, are grappling with the fact that not only the federal gas tax is not keeping up, their states are not keeping up as well. So how do you address that? What are the things that are out there? So I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what other states are talking about, because it is very similar to the challenges we are dealing with. So obviously we talked about on the national side, public-private partnerships. We have that authority now through the TMA. Choice lanes, sustainable revenue sources. So these are not necessarily the same thing. P3 is the delivery mechanism. Choice lanes is a user fee facility that generates some sort of revenue. We are seeing other states, no debt states like us, that are looking at what are the opportunities to employ these types of ideas, because their projects are getting so large they can't afford to build the entire thing, just like we are facing. And innovative financing tools. This is something that's being looked at out there by several states, including no debt states, as whether it be a design build finance model or a alternative, availability payment structures where you pay off a project as you go. And again, I'm talking here from a national perspective. I'm not advocating one way or another. The point I'm trying to make here is that we are talking about the right things. We are looking at the right tools, and we need to continue to do that. The other thing that I would say is, because of the growth we are seeing, particularly in the Southeast, this idea of looking at projects in corridors is becoming more and more prevalent. For instance, the way we used to, it's kind of like the boy at the dike that's got cracks in it. We used to be sticking fingers and toes wherever we could to stop the leaking. Well, the reality is, unless you fix the dam, you're eventually going to run out of fingers and toes. And states across the country are seeing that same thing. So it is exploded into, how do we build these mega projects and afford them to be able to address the need that's there? We have several instances of that across our state, whether it be obviously I-24 here in Nashville, I-65, I-40 West in Knoxville, I-24 in Chattanooga. There's places across the state where we have got to look at a corridor approach to really treat the disease versus just addressing the symptoms along the way. So how do we do that? Let me talk about just real quickly. Y'all are very aware of our 10-year plan. This is, while the first one came out back in 2023, this is a dynamic plan that we look at every quarter of every year. As projects come in and out, this is our blueprint. This is our plan for how we're going to spend our dollars every year. Obviously, things can change when it comes to things like right-of-way. It's often hard to judge how long that's going to take to buy 200 tracts of right-of-way on one project that may be 5 miles long. Just as give you an idea, when we say buy right-of-way, that's like closing on your house 200 times before you can go to contract. Those are each real estate transactions that we go through. So we have the largest effort in front of us we've ever had with regard to buying right away, but you should know we're leveraging private sources from all over the country to be able to make sure that we meet the deadlines that are set forth in this 10-year plan. Also want to mention that I talked about the Improve Act. There's 76 Improve Act projects in this 10-year plan. So we are steadily chipping away at that backlog of projects as well. And one of the things that's important about this, and I'll talk about probably as questions come up, is prioritizing these projects becomes a heavier lift on the department every day. I've been asked by some of you, I talked to elected officials at the state level as well as the local level. What about so-and-so project? I need this, we need that, we got to do this, we got to do that. And let me just say to you on the record, I agree with you completely. In fact, my colleagues and I that sit up here before you, we'd love to build every single one of them. That's what we do. It's what we love. We're here because we like to serve the public, and we like to get transportation projects put on the ground. We want to be able to move all Tennesseans and people that visit us from place to place as safe as we possibly can, regardless of how they choose to move. We want to provide a system that gets them there safely. So again, this is our blueprint for that. We will be, just like last year, updating this again as we go along. I do want to talk about, though, what funds this? In Tennessee, we are basically 50-50. And what I mean by that is 50% federal, 50% state in our funding. So if you look at the left side of this chart, that represents the federal dollars that come to us. The federal gas tax is 18.4 cents right now. The last time it was changed was in 1993, and it was not indexed to inflation. So I know many of us have bought a loaf of bread or a dozen eggs since 1993, and we know that those costs have changed. So if you were to look at that tax today, if it was indexed to inflation, it would be 40.7 cents. So the same has happened on the state side. The right side of this pie chart is the state funds that we receive through the state gas tax. It is at 26 cents a gallon. Last time it was increased was in 2017 via the Improve Act. Obviously, it's not indexed to inflation either. If you were to run the numbers on what it would be today, it would be approximately 33.3 cents today had it been indexed. So obviously, the buying power of the dollars with a flat revenue source and the cost of the goods or the materials and the labor that we use on our projects continues to go up, but the revenue is flat. Something else I want to bring up about this particular pie chart is there is different eligibility requirements with the left side, I'll call the green side, versus the state funds. There are several, I say several, numerous, almost 100 different buckets of federal money that we look at when we put together a funding plan for a project, and all of those have eligibility requirements. It is an extremely complex process to put together a funding plan for a project with federal funds in it. Now, obviously, we still want those funds. My point here is on the right side, the state dollars are much more flexible. In fact, the dollars on the right side are what we use for largely our maintenance program and our state of good repair. The federal dollars are not eligible for that, with the exception of one case, and that's interstate and NHS resurfacing. So as our maintenance efforts continue to grow across the state, those have to come out of the right side of the pie. So again, just wanting to give you a little bit of a flavor for what that funding split is. And then I'd like to show you comparatively to a lot of the states that we are surrounded by and often compete with for industry. So if you look at this graph, you'll see that Florida is 76% state, 24% federal. North Carolina, 75-25. Texas, 67-33. And then in Tennessee, we're at 49-51. Well, why is this important? The flexibility of the state dollars and the choices that those states have made to invest state dollars in their transportation system are having a direct impact on their ability to manage their transportation system. So again, one of the things that when I talk about being involved on a national level, we are on the precipice of having a discussion about federal legislation and reauthorization this coming year. One of Tennessee's positions is going to be make those funds, those federal funds that come to the states, easier to spend. Take some of the handcuffs off. The states know better than anyone how to manage their individual transportation systems, as they are all different. Not only that, I would submit to you that it takes us 2 to 3 times longer to deliver a project with federal dollars in it than it does a project that's completely state funded. Time is money. With a budget with as small a margins as we have, we need to be able to take advantage of the time value of money when and wherever we can. So on this next graph, I'd like to show you how we have been spending our money, both since the TMA was passed and when we got the general fund transfer this past year. What you see on this graph, I'll point your attention to the dashed line across the center. That is basically the 2018 spending level. And what this is depicting is contract lettings. So that's basically $1.3 billion is our average going back to 2018 of the projects that go out the door in construction lettings. You'll notice that in 2023, right with the year when the TMA was passed, you'll see a spike in construction lettings. We hit 1.7 billion that year in construction lettings, which was a record. We had projects on the shelf. We were able to immediately get those out on the street via the TMA dollars. And that resulted in the largest single year letting total we had ever had. You'll see a dip in 2024. We were going out. This is just construction dollars. We were going out spending money on buying right away to build additional projects. And then you'll see just here in 2025, again, another uptick. have set a record this year in contract awards for the Department of Transportation at $1.9 billion. And we are projected in 2026 to hit that $2 billion mark, making good on our promise that we are going to make sure that 90% of the TMA dollars are on the street by 2029. You'll see our spend out curve there going forward. A couple of things I'd like to point out is you see a significant dip in 2028. You see that the impact of the TMA dollars was beginning to wane. Then last year, y'all put another $1 billion into our program, and you see a spike there in 2029. So this is a visual representation of what that one-time money can do to your program. But the most important thing I want to point out is you will see that beginning in 2030, we are again approaching 2018 spending levels when it comes to our heavy construction program. So without new revenue sources identified, then we run the risk of falling backwards to 2018 spending levels. So why is that? Y'all have seen this graph. We've talked about it a lot. You hear about inflation, and inflation may be cooling some. Some people look at CPI. We could look at the National Construction Highway Construction Cost Index. This is a depiction since 2003. You can see the graph there. You can see the national averages on materials that we use every day, whether it be pipe, concrete, aggregate, huge increases in the cost of those materials on a data or since 2003. A 10% compound annual growth rate between 2020 and 2025. So why does it matter? Well, basically the same dollars are buying fewer projects. That's the punchline. We all know that. This is the data that shows why that is. So we are forced with the choice at TDOT to make of, do we reduce new project delivery and address capacity, or do we cut back on maintenance? We want to do neither. We want to be able to address both issues, so we're consistently looking for ways to do that. This is a graph of how we did that, looking at ourselves internally. If you look at this graph, what this depicts is the number of projects that were listed in our old 3-year plan, our future or our now 10-year plan. These are projects listed specifically. If you go back to 2014, between 2014 and 2021, you can see that we were hovering around an average of 50% delivery rate. That is the national average. When I became chief engineer, I knew this had to change. So if you'll notice in 2022, we made some significant changes to our project delivery process. We made structural changes that Lori Lang talked about in Epic to build an organization to deliver better. And I'm happy to report to you, since 2022, we have delivered over 90% of the projects that we said we would deliver. And in 2024 and 2025, we delivered 100% of the projects that we said we would. This is what we mean when we say we start what we finish on a daily basis. So I just wanted to point that out. Now, something else that's interesting about this, we put this in our employees' individual performance plans. Our employees at TDOT are measured on getting projects let to contract. We're a big believer in what gets measured gets done. We put those in individual performance plans, and we have seen that bear fruit like this that you see before you. So we're a big believer in that accountability driving results. And again, the numbers bear that out. I will tell you, going forward, this is going to be a harder number to achieve. We have set the goal at 80%. It's going to be more difficult as these projects that have been sitting around forever needing to buy right away for them. That's a big risk area. So as I mentioned, we're bringing in resources from all across the country to help us address that. But that said, our bar is going to be pursuing excellence in this area as well as all the others. So what does this mean when it comes to maintenance? There is a trade-off. If you go back to the pie chart I talked about, it's a 50-50 split. That pie is fixed for TDOT. So as maintenance costs continue to go up, we're forced to make decisions about these projects that are listed in the 3-year or 10-year plan and when they get delivered. Because that pie is not fixed, we may from year to year have to spend more money on maintenance dollars. And delivering at this high rate, back when you were delivering at 50%, you could very easily turn around and spend that money on maintenance projects. It frankly lulled us into a false sense of security about the way that we were funding maintenance. The reality is we need to deliver on both. And that's what we're saying here. So as we look forward, I do want to say again that we are very engaged and involved in the federal discussions with reauthorization. And I want to hit on three key points that we're talking about with our federal partners, and that is prioritize formula-based funding. Well, what does that mean? Well, back when the IIJA was passed, the current highway legislation, there was a big emphasis put on discretionary grants as part of that program. One of the things with discretionary grants is it's similar. Think about if you need a new roof on your house and you don't have the cash to pay for it. You can't just wait on winning the lottery or whatever to put a new roof on your house. You've got to get it done. You got to figure out a way to do that. Grants are the same way. We can't put all our eggs in those grant baskets, not get the project and be able to plan for projects going forward. So what we're saying to the feds is we want more formula-based funding that comes to the department and we can decide how that gets distributed and how it's used, and we can plan much better that way. Improve project delivery. I think I know we have a good story to tell at the federal level with what we've done in Tennessee relative to project delivery. And I know it's a good story because I have several other states coming to us asking us how we've done it. When the national average is 50%, all states are struggling with this. And a lot of it, frankly, has to do with regulation on the federal side. And again, we're going to try to improve that. And then to the degree we can, expand funding when it comes to transportation innovation, trying to figure out how to move more vehicles through the same footprint more efficiently. How can we leverage technology to be able to do that? We think there are a lot of opportunities for that. We're going to continue to be at the forefront of it and look forward to being part of the conversation nationally about how we move transportation forward and serve Tennesseans better. So with that, Chairman, I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Very well presented. Before we open it up for questions, I have a few on the list, but I just wanted to remind the members that what we do here matters. And if you don't believe it, just go back over those numbers. What we did in 2023 with the TMA, I think two of our guests mentioned the TMA a couple of three times. That enabled, we basically took the shackles off of TDOT, basically what we did, and allowed them to do what they do best, and that's maintain and build our infrastructure. So I just want to encourage our members that what we do here matters. And while we would like to have some more funds, we're working on that too. But before we open it up, I'd like to touch on one thing. I happened to have the opportunity to watch your presentation in front of TASER. As you know, the TASER was, I believe it was Representative Vital's bill that asked TASER to do a study of the funding that we currently have and ideas and how we can go about doing additional funding. And it's a deep, deep dive. We should have that study, I believe, in September. Is that right, Representative Vital? I believe it is September, maybe later. But one thing that as I watched, something you said, I'd like for you to let the committee know about this. One question I get, I think other members get the same question, is widening our interstates. And you mentioned the mileage of interstates that we have and the price tag that it would do it, that it would take to widen those interstates. To me, that painted a picture of just how far we are behind the eight ball and how much funding we need and why we need to address it now. Could you talk
Sure.
about that?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So the question that came up, and it was the same question that the governor asked me in our budget hearing. Widening rural interstates was part of it. There was three things that we looked at. If you consider, to the chairman's question, widening rural interstates, that's about 650 miles of interstates across the state of Tennessee that are still in their two-lane configuration. So to widen all of those interstates would be $19.5 billion.
And our construction budget is about 1.9.
Well, actually, 1.9 will be a result of the TMA. Our typical
Right.
2018 spending levels, which we'll get back to, are about 1.3.
Very good.
So if I may add to that, Chairman,
please.
you had asked the question. So the numbers we talked about, the rural interstates were 19.5 billion. The urban congestion, which we put this into three buckets: rural interstates, urban congestion, and finishing the Improve Act. Rural interstates were 19.5 billion. Urban congestion was 23.9 billion. And the Improve Act was 14.6 billion. If you want to do quick math, that's $58 billion just in those three buckets. And I want to be clear, this is not, TASSER is doing a much deeper dive. I don't want to get ahead of TASSER. They're doing very, very good work there. But as we get this, I get this question all the time. What is that need that's out there? Again, it depends on how you package it. But if you just look at those three buckets, to your point that we talk about most of the time, rural interstates, urban congestion, and Improve Act, $58 billion.
Mhm. That's a large number. I'm happy to say, and I believe you've seen it too or heard it too, I think the conversation has been elevated. I believe we're hearing more, and excuse my voice, it's a result of a hangover. Not that kind of hangover. Hangover from bronchitis. But I'm fine. I just can't talk. But I believe I've heard more discussion. I heard it this morning, having coffee with some people, some representatives, about we've got to find a way to find additional revenue streams so that we can maintain and build the infrastructure that we need and that our constituents demand. And I think we need to give our attention to that. And it's urgent that we do it now, because I don't want my 5-year-old granddaughter to have to deal with it when the cost is going to be 3 times as much 20 years from now. So thank you for that. Let's open it up to the committee. I believe our first Representative Russell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate TDOT being here in the presentation. I want to say thank you to your workers that are out there today on this cold day that's got a shovel in their hands. Those are the most important employees y'all have out there. I want to thank Jay and Doug Gunnels for always helping the legislative staff out and us for getting us information we need. Would you talk about the longest programs that you got going on in TDOT, like the oldest road projects, and what you're doing to complete those?
Yeah, so I would say the longest that are on the list, and probably the best way to do this, representatives, we've got a pretty big database that we can. There's literally thousands of projects. I came before you as chief engineer several years ago, talking about the reprioritization process, but there are a couple that stick out to me. There's 2 still in the 86 road program that are in need of attention. But the only 2 left in that, we actually, my predecessor has a document he put together detailing all of those projects that were delivered in the 86 road program. There's a few there. One project that hits close to home for me is we're actually under construction now on a section of Summer Avenue in Memphis. I surveyed on that project as an intern in 1996. It's finally gone to contract. I'll be glad when we get to the point where we don't have to talk about these projects that have been around so long. I think you can see that our focus is getting those things out the door as quickly as we can. But I'll be glad to, if there's any particular project in particular, because it is a fairly long list of needs that are out there.
Follow up?
And the follow-up to that is I've been watching some of the budget hearings, and I couldn't find where TDOT has went back and asked for over-collected money to finish some of these projects. Do you know if they've done that?
That's actually part of our normal process. So when it comes, if you're referring to a typical construction project, we pay actuals. So most of our projects are unit price bid projects, where if the contractor puts in 500 yards of material, they get paid for 500 yards of material. All of those things are balanced at the end of a job when it's closed out. So actual costs are what are paid.
I meant for like the state budget. Every year we've collected over the amount of money that was projected. In fact, for the past 10 years, we've collected $11.9 billion. And I was just trying to figure out if TDOT could have used that money to finish some of these road projects instead of asking for us to tax people more.
Here's what I would say to that. Whatever money TDOT gets, and again, that's a policy decision, but whatever money TDOT gets, you're going to get it back in the form of projects on the ground. Whatever we get, we're going to get it put on the street.
Thank you.
I believe some of those one-time funding, like in the Improve Act, I believe that came from some of the reserve funds that we had that was over-collected, if I'm not mistaken. Next on the list, Vice Chairman Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to mention Dexter Justice. We'd had several conversations after he got sick, and I appreciate my colleague down there from Greene County recognizing him, and also you, Mr. Commissioner. And moving on, so I sent the governor a letter several months ago requesting $10 billion. As you know, we sent that letter to you, $10 billion to be added in the state budget this year to dedicate just to some of this backlog of projects. And I believe if we don't make a significant investment in the state budget, we are never going to get caught up. I mean, we're getting further and further behind. We're $38 billion now. You just mentioned the Improve Act projects and what that would take. So if we don't make a significant investment over the next 3 to 5 years, do you think that we're ever going to be able to get even caught up? Because costs continue to increase each year, labor continues to increase, et cetera, et cetera. Is $10 billion, one, can we manage that from a TDOT standpoint and contractor standpoint? Number two, if we don't, what are we going to be at?
Yeah, so I appreciate the question. I think, regardless of whatever dollars come in, you bring up an excellent point. There needs to be thought put into how that is stair-stepped into the program. We have a very good qualified pool of contractors in this state that have spent their careers, third, fourth generation companies, building the infrastructure that we have. They, just like everybody else in private industry, needs predictability to be able to grow their business, and they need time to be able to do that. So anything that comes in, just like we did when the 3.3 came in with the TMA, we went back and developed a plan with how we were going to stair step that in over a period of years. So yeah, it would be, if you just put a $10 billion slug of money in there, obviously it would be tough to get it on the street. But I think what we have shown is we can develop a plan to gradually grow that program. And we're seeing interest from all over. We're seeing Tennessee homegrown companies build their businesses. We're seeing other interests come from other places. It's frankly a good problem to have. You ask what would happen? Well, congestion will continue to get worse. But most importantly, I talk about this all the time. The current state of our infrastructure now is is our priority number one. We have over 20,000 bridges in Tennessee, and the average age of those is 48 years. So, we talk about congestion and all of those things, but the bridge that just got posted for a lower weight in a rural area of Tennessee is just as important for the kids that get on the school bus that have to cross that bridge as congestion is somewhere else. So it's really got to be a conversation about scalable solutions across the state and how that money gets applied.
Thank you, Commissioner. And you bring up my next point. Not only do we have a backlog of projects on the state level, we have the same problem on a local level. So each county is struggling to repair bridges and get the funding. Bridge cost has gone up. So we're going to have to make some tough decisions and allocate money where necessary. And so it's become a major issue. And I think we need to prioritize transportation, because if we can't travel through our state, we can't do a lot of other things. We can't move people and products and goods. So I appreciate what you do. And I do want to commend you, Commissioner. We spoke, I think 2 days or so before you got sworn in as commissioner. And I want to publicly thank you. I called you, one, to congratulate you, and two, and to remind you of Highway 62 in Morgan County. And we had 5 fatalities on that road in less than 2 weeks. And I appreciate you taking the time and prioritizing Morgan County and coming to see it. Your first words to me is, I need to get my eyes on that road. And we looked at that road. We have made some of the spot improvements on that road. So that program does work. It has helped. It has reduced some of the accidents that we've had. So I appreciate TDOT for prioritizing Highway 62 because it's working. The spot safety improvements are working. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. This seems like a good time for me to inject my opinion on something. Tagging on to what the Vice Chairman said about TDOT's budget. I think I've conversed with the commissioner about this, but I'm an old media guy, so I know how to do research and look at things. And I have, through the summer, compared TDOT's budget with some of our neighbors. Comparable size, tried to do it with population, road miles, how they fund roads and things like that. But anyhow, my conclusion was, and this is strictly my conclusion, that if anybody says anybody else said it beside me, they're lying. This is my opinion, okay? But based on my conclusion of comparing other states, Georgia was one of them. I think Texas was one of them. TDOT's budget in a perfect world would be somewhere between $7 and $9 million recurring to do what we need to do and to let TDOT do what they need to do. The reality is their budget is about 2.9, and out of that, they pay their employees, only department that pays their own employees. They pay for the help trucks, they pay for the mowing, which is $14 million a year, and many other things, their equipment, the maintenance on their equipment, many other things, and their budget is actually right now about 1.9. So to expect them to do more than what they're doing now is just unreasonable until we find the money that they need so that they can provide what the constituents of Tennessee want us to have. But that's my opinion. We'll move on now. That'll probably show up in the paper somewhere. I don't know, but I don't care. Representative Pearson.
Thank you so much, Chairman. And I think to your point, getting more resources for these projects and also looking into the future is important. And I think when we are talking about the budget and when the budget discussions come up, making sure that we don't do things, because in the past we've cut $2 billion out of our budget, given tax cuts to corporations. We need to make sure that we keep investments in our state so that we can fund programs and projects that TDOT's talking about. I have three very quick ones. I didn't hear you mention much about public transit. And I'm very curious because I know there's been efforts in the past how we connect Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga, and getting resources, even potentially federally, focused on that.
Yeah, so obviously transit is a big component of what we do. As a matter of fact, I've been joined by Preston Elliott, my deputy commissioner over planning. I'm going to let him speak to many of the investments we make in transit already. But before I do want to make the point, and I said this earlier, our role at TDOT is to provide a safe and reliable transportation system for all users, regardless of how they choose to move. I will say that, one of the things that often gets missed in this discussion, particularly when it comes to rail or passenger rail, is the reliance. Part of that discussion has a reliance on the Class 1 railroads. Those are not within our jurisdiction. Those are private entities that would be critical to the discussion about large-scale changes in the way passengers are moved via rail. So I'll ask Preston to elaborate.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Preston Elliott, Deputy Commissioner over the Bureau of Planning. So oftentimes we do not emphasize a lot of the other activities that the department works on, but my bureau oversees all of the modes. I have a whole division that's dedicated to passenger transportation, rail, and freight. We work with all of the transit agencies across the state, urban and rural. We are one of the few states in the country that actually has public transportation available throughout all 95 counties. We have a variety of programs. So our larger transit agencies, like let's say in Memphis, they receive direct Federal Transit Administration funding. But through the department, through our smaller urban areas, let's say in Jackson or in the Tri-Cities, their funds will come through our department. So we provide match dollars for their federal grants. We also have several state-funded grant programs that are specific for transit. In fact, just before the new year, we released, I believe it was $42 million in grants. Those are a combination of state and federal funds to transit agencies across the state. Here in Nashville, we've actually provided some funding for the North Nashville Transit Center down in Murfreesboro. Opened up this last year, transit center in Murfreesboro. We're currently working with WeGo on their Antioch station. So a variety of things. You asked also specifically about rail or passenger rail. If you recall, a few years ago, there was a task or study that was directed to look at passenger rail across the state of Tennessee. We focused both on long distance with studies as well as passenger rail. And Chattanooga in 2024 received what's called a corridor ID planning funds through the Federal Rail Authority, $500,000 for study purposes. And that is a study corridor of connecting Atlanta via Chattanooga, Nashville to Memphis, looking at passenger rail opportunities. We are just in the planning stages of that. Back in October, led by the city of Chattanooga, they formed what's called a Sunbelt Coalition, bringing all of those entities that I mentioned, including the state of Georgia and Atlanta, into the conversation of rail. But I need to tell you, while we're talking about from the planning perspective, much like we've had the conversation about roads and bridges, there are no funds, no dedicated funds specifically for passenger rail.
Yep. When it comes to Hurricane Helene, and I called many of my colleagues after that happened to see if there was anything we can do for Memphis to be of service. But I do a lot of work in environmental and climate justice, and we know that the increase in hurricanes, tornadoes, thunderstorms is going to continue to happen because of the trajectory of the way that things are going in our country with fossil fuels and the like. How are we? I mean, because you said there was funding due to the TMA, and I've supported some of the things within the TMA without supporting the whole thing. But how are we looking ahead, going to be prepared for instances like the next Hurricane Helene's that are going to impact us? Or should there be funding that the legislature should put aside for TDOT to prepare for those potential natural disasters?
So here's what I would say with regard to that. We had funding available there through the TMA. So thankfully we were there and prepared. There are other federal programs that are able to be accessed via FEMA that are out there when those disasters strike. I think one of the things we have to keep in mind is whether you call it a statistical probability approach or what have you, we have a responsibility in my mind to be fiscally responsible when it comes to the dollars that we do receive. And the best way for us to do that is to be able to get those dollars on the ground as quickly as we can, whatever comes to us. It may not be the greatest answer, but when things like that happen, we figure out a way to deal with them. That's what we did with Helene. That's what we'll continue to do. So, whether or not it's to your question about a dedicated pool of money, what I can tell you right now is any money that comes in, it needs to be directed first and foremost to the state of good repair of the system that we already have.
Good. And then this might very quickly, the TDOT fix. Can you talk about that? I saw that on the presentation.
Thank you. Jay Klein, Director of State and Congressional Legislative Affairs for the department. So we have a fantastic hotline, and there's also an online option for constituents and citizens and local governments to put in a request of it could be as simple as a pothole, it could be as simple as a guardrail that maybe is slightly displaced. And so while obviously our folks are on the road, we're keeping an eye. It's fantastic to be able to provide citizens with a direct way for them to flag something for us, and then we'll go out there and get that case taken care of. And on that note as well, as you all drive across the state quite a bit this time of year, feel free to let us know if you see anything, and we want to get that addressed.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Glenn, you're on the list next.
Must be on the front row. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, TDOT, for all you do. I know it is not an easy task. Hearing from us, complaining about our roads, our this, our that, and constituents beating us down. But you all continue to do great work, and thank you for that. A couple of questions here, and one of them more is probably of a statement. I think you're telling us what we need to do. You're just not saying it because obviously you can't just say, you need to raise taxes, you need to do this, you need to do that. I think we are letting our constituents down by not actually telling them what needs to happen in order to get the resources and the funds needed to fix our roads. Our roads are in bad shape, and that's no lie. We are behind in building our infrastructure to match our growth. And I think Tennesseans need to know that we have to do something. And if we keep down this road, and I think our chairman up there, our vice chairman said it, Chairman Butler, that we're not going to get anywhere nickel and diming TDOT and hoping that somehow we're going to get there. So if the state has a AAA rating, you talked about no debt states, and if we can't find a way to bond some of these roads, it's almost like you have excellent credit, your house is falling down, but you refuse to take a loan because you don't want to mess with your credit, and then your house is on the ground. You have nowhere to live. So I'm trying to figure out if we're not going to use this AAA credit that we have and to really and truly fix our roads, and really what's the purpose of the AAA credit except telling everyone we have AAA credit? So that's more of a statement than a question. So here's my question. I don't want to respond. So the Rural Service Patrol, you said you're going to start in April. About how long will it be before you have vehicles across the state that you need? But what's the timeline on being
Yes,
complete?
so I'll defer to my.
About 6 weeks in between.
So you just heard my chief of operations here, 6 weeks between each deployment. We were trying to get it done within half a year, try to get it. We didn't want to have one region out there where we had them, and we know the next call is going to be, when are you getting the next one? So it's really a function of our contractor that's doing it being able to get the vehicles and staff up to do it. If I had my way, I'd like to do it all at one time. I mean, but it's just mainly a function of being able to get the resources to roll it out.
Okay. I was just curious. On the way in this morning, somebody ran off the road and I thought about it then. How much of TDOT's budget actually go to Tennessee and, road builders in Tennessee and all the contracts you give out? How much a percentage of that budget stays within Tennessee in terms of the contractors that you hire? You have a roundabout number?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but that's something we could probably look at. To be honest, we don't. It's not something we measure. We measure contractors by their ability to perform, not necessarily where they're from. But here's what I would say is, I think all of us need to be very. Going back to some of your other comments, I think we all need to be very proud of the system that we have. Even though we have our challenges like everybody else, I mentioned states like Florida, Texas, all those, they outspend us, but their roads aren't any better than ours are. So I think the reason I bring that up is it does matter how we're stewards of the dollars. We're ranked 44th as far as spending. Our overall grade for our system is the same as those states I mentioned. So not to take anything away from those states, but I think how you manage a transportation system with whatever dollars you have makes a huge difference. So that's why I wanted to make such a point earlier about this road that we've been on to address this problem. We've taken these incremental steps. Those have been bold and they have been meaningful. So regardless of what lies in the future, I think it's really important that how we manage the money that we do get is just as important as the amount.
Thank you. Last question, Mr. Chairman. When a city moves from rural to urban, is that a different pot of money that they're authorized? And the reason I ask is because apparently Montgomery County has moved from rural to urban, so I want my money. And I'm just trying to figure out what do I need to do to get it. We have some projects we'd like to get done in Montgomery County.
So I'm glad you asked that question because MPOs get a direct allocation from the feds. Clarksville is an MPO.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
let Preston speak to
Okay,
this.
just give me my money. Go ahead.
We would
Yeah.
love for you to get that
Yeah,
money and
there you
get it on the
Yeah,
street.
Yes, sir. So I used to say Tennessee, the big four. So now we have to say big five. So in 2020, as a result of the census, which occurs every decennial, when an urbanized area exceeds 200,000 in population, i.e. Clarksville, Montgomery County, they become what's called a transportation management area, TMA, not to confuse with the other TMA. But in that case, when that occurs, their allocation is actually defined in federal apportionments or allocations. And so that will occur. I don't have the number at hand, but they will see an increase in their amount of what's called Surface Transportation Block Group Funds, STBG funds.
If I may, I do want to point out though, TDOT is only one. We don't control all of those dollars.
Yeah.
Okay, when those dollars go to an MPO, there are members of those MPO boards that control those dollars. We have a seat there, but we would love to see those dollars hit the street. In fact, Tennessee was ranked one of the worst in the country just recently with regard to MPOs getting dollars on the streets. We've worked hard with the MPOs. They've worked hard to reverse that trend. So there's money there that needs to get on the street.
Okay, give me a seat there. I'll come and help you.
Thank you. Members, we've got about 13 minutes and we've got about 10 people on the list. So we will try to be concise and keep it moving until we have to get out of here by 12 because of Education Committee. Next on the list is Chairman Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, and I'll try to be brief. I don't think there's going to be a question there, but keep listening, there may be. If I could go to Mr. Klein, and I think you're running the projection there, the screen. If we could go to slide 11, please. And if that was your garage band on the video we saw earlier, Mr. Klein, you did a really good job with your garage band there. So thank you for that. Those are some numbers that I want to bring our attention to. $3 billion through the Transportation Modernization Act and $1 billion in the current budget where we are, $4 billion over the past three budget cycles. And as I'm listening to my colleagues describe the concerns that they've got, this committee and myself included are solutions-based, and we've got a bill. The old cliche, we've got a bill. We've got an opportunity that we can show the finance committees that we have used $4 billion of non-recurring general fund dollars to go toward transportation needs across the state of Tennessee. And it's not been a detriment to our budget at all. So I want us as a committee to be able to send that message to our finance committee that we can do this. And the bill that we've got, the bill that I've got, it's going to have its 9th birthday this April. The conversations about using sales taxes on motor vehicle sales to go specifically dedicated toward transportation projects. We took a small step last year with the sales tax on tires, the $80 million that we are putting in a recurring basis now to go toward transportation. I think that may be something that we could potentially use to address Representative Glenn's comments about a potential way to retire debt should we choose to go down that way. And some of us are having those discussions as well. But we need to put a substantial recurring amount of revenue toward transportation needs, and we've already proven that we can do it on a non-recurring basis. I want us to take up that challenge and do that on a recurring basis. I think at this point, and I don't want to speak for the chairman, but I know as we're getting the report from Chairman Vital's TASER committee report, that I believe all opportunities and all options are on the desk. I don't think that we need to say no to any potential funding mechanisms at this moment with all those we've heard included so far. Didn't get to a question, just comments, but want to thank all of our friends at TDOT for all you do. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. I think that's what we call a shameless plug for a bill, which I'm a co-sponsor on, by the way. Representative Sherrill, you're next.
Thank you, Chairman. Hey, we just want to very much say thank you to Commissioner and TDOT, all that you do for us in the great state of Tennessee. Appreciate it very much. I know that we are having a lot of folks that's moving in Tennessee, and that's creating more of a problem for our roads, but we got to deal with it the best we can, and we appreciate it. You know, thank the good Lord that since President Donald Trump's come in office, our fuel is about $1 less on the gallon. So hopefully that'll help us to get more fun, people spending more money on gas, and more funds coming into Tennessee to help with our road problems, whatever. Just a little something, maybe you can elaborate on this and you may not. These autonomous vehicles, and I'm directing this mostly to big semi trucks. Is there something that TDOT has to do to make this work for these vehicles on our roadways?
Yeah, so appreciate the question. Yes, there are certain things, but we have been preparing for that, frankly, for years. There has to be a way for these vehicles and this technology to read and understand pavement markings and signs and things of that nature. We often talk with the members of industry that are producing products. But one of the innovative things that we're doing, I'll let Preston speak to this. If you remember the governor's state of the state last year, he talked about a smart freight corridor between Memphis and Blue Oval City. We're working with industry to look at how can we move freight quicker, smarter, and faster. And the autonomous technology is going to be part of that. So think of that kind of as a test bed of how we're going to be able to move freight using autonomous technology. Preston?
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, on that topic. So last year, as Commissioner mentioned, in our budget is an appropriation for the Smart Freight Corridor. It is on I-40 between the Blue Oval and Memphis. We're currently in the procurement process, but it's an attempt to basically work with industry to look at the opportunities of autonomous and other smart freight aspects that can be utilized within our roadways to operate safer, more efficiently, and to reduce that conflict that often occurs between passenger and freight. As the Commissioner mentioned, we are always in conversation with industry partners. There are conversations across our state on autonomous in the Knoxville region, as well as we had one operate a small operation that occurred down near the southern border of Alabama, and as we've mentioned in West Tennessee. So it's a constant evolutional aspect. We've had conversations with companies in Texas that are looking to expand to the east that are currently operating autonomous truck today.
Okay. Thank you very much. I know it's coming our way. We probably don't have a lot of it right now, but it's probably coming. But anyway, to all of you at TDOT, we do appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, and folks, we have 5 minutes. Representative Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll keep this very brief. First of all, I do want to say to TDOT, thank you for the completion. It's great to start projects and keep them going and try to overcome all the obstacles you run into, whether it's additional utilities or right-of-way challenges. But State Route 317, which was a major project in East Hamilton County, we completed that this year. Great addition. Also Highway 60, which benefits greatly myself and Chairman Howell. We appreciate that getting completed. Those are real additions for job creation, economic development, also relieving congestion. We don't have to have a full answer on it, but I do want to keep the focus on Chattanooga continues to be on many lists as a great place to live along with Tennessee, but it has become a choke point. I-75 North, the I-75-24 intersection has had a lot of work for a long time. We're working through that. We have geographical challenges with the ridge and the river, and then 24 West, which is a future project. It's sometime we just need to continue to educate our public, educate our traveling public, how to avoid the ongoing congestion challenges that we have in Chattanooga as we try to address this in the future. So no answer necessary, but I do want to keep that on the forefront for all of us in Tennessee and especially in Southeast Tennessee. Thank you for the work.
Representative
Thank you, Chairman.
Towns.
Man, I thought it never happened. And Commissioner, thank you all. As everyone has said, you do a fantastic job, always have. And I love the committee. I'm gonna cut it short because we don't have a lot of time. A couple of three things though. The bridge in Memphis, we appreciate that when y'all came down for that. Okay. The Elvis Presley mansion. I mean, the Elvis Presley street. That thing's been out of commission for 20 years. Okay. Unacceptable. It's the second most visited house next to the White House in the country. All that traveling. I was on it this just a couple of days ago. Felt like I was on the moon. Okay. It's bad. It's horrible. And it needs to be done. I don't know what we need to do to expedite it, but that thing needs to be done. That's a tourist artery, one of the main ones in the state. So we don't have the time to get into it, but I want something. I have to meet with you personally. We got to figure out how to expedite that thing. Everybody's complaining about it in my city that goes down there. And it's really a bad impression for people that are coming from all over the world. Okay, I'm gonna leave that right there. The other thing is this, while we did the bridge down there, that still leaves us with one bridge in case something happens. So I've been a proponent of the third bridge. We got to get a third bridge. That crack revealed a lot of stuff. We lost tons of dollars. We lost all the corporations, all the people in terms of time and labor. We lost so much money with one bridge being available. So at some point, we got to get us a third bridge in that city because of the nexus, the hub that it is for transportation across the country. And I'd like to talk with you more about that, but I need to keep it on the agenda, on the table, and because something we're going to have to do at some point, and only going to cost more in the future. For you, the last question: when you go to DC and all these people from around the world, what kind of new technology are they talking to you about, or you all talking about that may help us save money, advance the cause, and a cheaper way and run more efficiently? If they're from around the world, there may be some new stuff that we can take full advantage of.
So here's the way I would answer your last question is there's a lot of different technology out there, whether it be autonomous vehicles or otherwise. But here's the way I would answer it. Several of the people behind me and several of the people that work at TDOT are members of those committees that are making decisions about technology. You employ some of the best, brightest minds from around the world right here in Tennessee that are making those decisions. So we're going to continue to develop our staff so that we're on the forefront and the cutting edge of those technologies. We have people come to us every day, but I'm very thankful and humbled to have some of the brightest minds, frankly, in the world working for this state that are able to say, yes, this is potentially a solution for us, or maybe this needs a little more work. So what I would say is we're actively engaged in that conversation about what technologies are best and can be applied.
Commissioner, I concur with you 100%. More specifically, I'm looking at trying to figure out what can we do for the roads so this stuff does not deteriorate so quickly. Okay, all this asphalt costs a lot of money, and one winter is gone. Definitely 2 winters is gone. So it may be some new technology as it relates to the roads and extending the life of some of the stuff that we're using. That's what.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, the staff. The clock has struck 12 and the Education Committee is coming in. Before we adjourn, I have to say this again. I've been told House Bill 864 has been taken off notice and sent to the special calendar, and we are adjourned.